Okay, let us know when you're ready.
Good evening. We are all set.
Uh, Thank you. This is Deputy Mayor Winograd, and I'll call the meeting to order. Meeting of the Finance Committee on this February 13th snowy day. Um, uh, we've got on today, we have counselors Cortez, Walters, uh, and McGinnis. Um, we also have the members of this committee, Minority Leaders Danowitz and Poland, Councillor Poland. We also have our, did I mention, and our mayor, Sherry Cantor. Uh, Let me see, I'm going down the list. We also have Rick Ledwith and guests here today to present on the ordinance that's our topic today is our registrars of voters, Elizabeth Rousseau and Beth Kyle, and our town clerk, Dan Davidoff, who also has an integral part of this whole election operation. So with that, I'll turn it over to Rick to explain the ordinance and bring on our guests.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, everyone. We appreciate everybody's flexibility in attending this evening's meeting. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss the number of polling places we would utilize for early voting polling, which will begin with this April's presidential primary. The town clerk, deputy corporation counsel, and myself met with our registrars of voters last week to discuss the number of early voting polling places we would utilize here in West Hartford, and our registrars were in agreement that we would utilize one polling place for early voting, and we all concurred with this recommendation. So we invited our registrars to join us tonight to discuss their recommendations with the committee. And through you, Mr. Chairman, I will turn it over to Beth Kyle and Elizabeth Rousseau. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And just before you do, I'll acknowledge that Councillor Carol Blanks is also on the line.
Okay, so what's our next step here? It's our first time for Elizabeth and I to be here, and thank you for having us. I do not have in front of me the final copy of the resolution. Is that to be discussed at this time as to what our recommendation was? Did you all get a chance to look at that and see if you had any questions for us at this meeting before it goes to town council?
Yeah, we have the ordinance,
Okay.
which uh, Rick can summarize if you'd like. And I do believe it has in there the single polling location for early voting and the money we got from the state to help fund that. So I guess I would, if you could tell us a little bit about the budget impact, what you do expect it to cost to keep them open, I think that would be helpful. Then we'll open up to questions if anybody has any other concerns or issues with the ordinance.
I'll let Elizabeth speak to the budget piece if she would, but before we start that, because she did a lot of number crunching, gratefully on my part that she did a lot of number crunching for us. But we have determined one polling location for early voting for the reasons that were listed on the ordinance, the resolution. Specifically, I'll just give a quickie as to why. One, we have a concern with custody of ballots. So every evening, the ballots for early voting, which for the primary is 4 days, for the presidential election will be 14 days, have to be brought from where early voting location is to the town clerk's office, where they will have to be under lock and key, because we do not count those ballots until election day, similarly to absentee ballots. So we need to make sure, if you think logically about us having a polling location on the other side of town for 14 days, and every night those ballots have to come back to us in cars or what have you under lock and key. There's always potential risk of chain of custody and oversight with those things. So from that standpoint, it was one of the reasons that we thought one polling district would be a good idea. We chose Town Hall because it is central, really, to all of the voters. It has substantial parking. It has disability access with regard to an elevator. There is a generator there. It is town-owned. And we can kind of control more the parking situation there than we can at some other locations. We also have concerns about connectivity from an IT standpoint. So according to the Secretary of State's latest email to us, there will be CVRS connected, which is the Connecticut Voter Registration System, every day of early voting, which means we will be able to sign into the state system to know if voters have voted either absentee in advance, because we don't want, they're going to be able to do it consecutively if they tried to. We want them to clearly not to be able to cast two ballots. So we need to be able to check that. We also need to make sure that they haven't voted early voting in another town and that they are actually registered in the state of Connecticut. There's a lot of processes. If IT goes down in various places, that's connectivity that we don't necessarily need to have on a regular election. We go with paper stuff in a regular election. So it's a lot more old school. We don't need that kind of connectivity at each polling location on regular election day, but we will for early voting. We want to make sure every polling location has the same, we don't want to disenfranchise anybody is what we're trying to say by not having connectivity at one place and having it at another place, having people have to wait at certain lines somewhere and not at another place. So that was another issue. And then maybe one of the last ones, and not inconsequential, is the cost to the town with regard to staffing potentially 10 polling locations for early voting for 4 days and then for 14 days. Even if we did 2, the staffing is substantial and the cost is substantial. And as you can see, the state gave a across the board grant to us, one time only, regardless of how many voters are in your town. So somebody with 3,000 voters got $10,500, and someone with $40,000 like West Hartford also got $10,500. So there was no type of sliding scale there for costs associated, unfortunately. And so those are our primary reasons. And if I'm forgetting one, it's because I'm not looking. Elizabeth, please speak to it. I'll turn Elizabeth over. If you don't have any questions about, I mean, at the end, we can do big questions, like once Elizabeth tells you the cost that we expect, if that's okay with everybody on the meeting.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
Okay, great.
Thanks. So with the costs associated with early voting, we're still, awaiting the last bits of guidelines from the state. But we are expecting that $10,500 will go to cover the cost of a fireproof storage cabinet that can store the ballots between the first day of early voting and election day, or primary day in this case, when the ballots can be counted, because we don't have a fireproof vault in Town Hall. We need to purchase a fireproof receptacle. And that's going to be about $4,000, $5,000, still working out delivery cost to the town. Other expenses are going to be, we need new ballot boxes because the ballot boxes that we have are meant to be used with our tabulators. They're not meant to be used without a tabulator inserted. So it's not a good experience for the voter. It's not a good experience for the poll workers to use that box. And those cost around $300 each. And we're anticipating that we may need to have up to 5 in a location on a busy day when there are lots of people voting. Staffing, a conservative estimate of the staffing costs for the 4 days of early voting is $8,500. We budgeted for this approximately when we first knew that we could be having early voting, because the state of Connecticut passed early voting in November of 22. Or yes, November of 22. The state was working on it last year, so we put it into our budget that we would need more in staffing than otherwise. So we should be okay with that. Other expenses are we're going to need to have label printers. So for every voter who comes in, they are going to be checked off on CVRS, like Beth explained. But CVRS, if you've ever voted by an absentee ballot, the town clerk's office uses these types of labels, and that will give the voter's name, their address, their district, and maybe one other piece of information about the voter, and a barcode that can be scanned. And that helps with traceability of ballots. It prevents, illegible handwriting and voters can easily read something that's typed and legible to confirm we've chosen the right person. So we don't mix up Leon and Lonnie Davidoff, for example. What other? Just look at
We'll also
one
have that
other.
mailing, Elizabeth, that we're going to be doing.
Yes, we're also going to have a mailing postcards like we did for the redistricting process that happened 2 years ago now. For the first 2 elections that we had redistricting, we mailed postcards to all of your houses. They were like neon pink or orange, told you where your new polling place was. We're going to do something similar, telling all the households in West Hartford, early voting is happening. It will be at this location, these hours, these days. And if you have any questions, you can call our office and any other information that we deem appropriate. We're hearing from other towns what they're including in their messaging to voters as well. I think there's also some like various signage that we need to get more of. So like we'll get some additional 75-foot signs and other things like that.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Open up and see if anybody has any questions. Councilor Blanks.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Just a quick question for you, Elizabeth or Beth. With the postcards, will those be in Spanish at all? Or will you have a portion in Spanish?
Yes, we
we
will have
them
the
in
same as
Spanish.
last time. Just exactly the same as we had for the redistricting postcards. We will have a line, and under the line will be Spanish as well. Yes.
Thank you.
That's our practice with all mailings.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Councilor Cortez? Sorry.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So just 2 questions. First question is, in addition to the postcards, would there be any other campaigns, whether, like digital campaign, just a way to spread the word? Because sometimes we don't look at those postcards in the mail. And then the second question is, as far as for staffing the polling stations, when do you guys start reaching out to get workers?
So with regard to reaching out to get workers, we've already begun that process. That's pretty much a consistently ongoing process for us year round. There is always a application for poll working on the West Hartford Registrar of Voters website. And we also have people who, at the end of last year's voting, we asked them if they are interested in coming back next year, because it is always nice to have people who have done it before and are familiar, particularly when you're going into a situation of the unknown for early voting. It's nice to have people who have an understanding of statutes and regulations. So that's an ongoing process. We are always, of course, welcome to have other poll workers. And so anyone can go to the West Hartford Registrar's webpage and go to the poll worker application apply that way, and it comes directly to Elizabeth and I digitally. So we have begun that process already. With regard to the signage, yes. The answer is a resounding yes. So there will be, luckily, with regard to early voting, there has already been a lot of conversation around it in the papers and on the news. We will continue to have, through ROVAC, which is our Registrar of Voters Association in Connecticut, newspaper articles put in, advertisements. We will do that as well. We will run it on the West Hartford television channel along the bottom as well. We've had conversations about sending them to the listserv. I don't know what we officially call it, but the same that we have with regard to other issues going on. If you've signed in for information, we'll have it on our website. We'll have it on the main website as a pop-up for people when they come on. That's what we have so far, which is very similar to what we did for early voting. There will, of course, be signs outside of Town Hall on the days that early voting is, to show people that early voting is here and where it's going to be. And we are certainly open to other suggestions, inside budgetary restraint that sound reasonable. So anything that, any suggestions that you all have, you can speak to us now for sure, or send it to us via email.
Thank you
And I
for
would
that.
definitely encourage you all to share within your own social networks about early voting.
Council Poland, you had a question? You still?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. This is a $10,500 grant, is my understanding, that we have until December 31st of this year to use, correct? Through you, Mr. Chair?
Correct.
Great. So this will get us through the presidential primary, any other primaries we may have, and the general election. If we wanted to, and we're supplementing this, I guess, with some town funds as well. So if we wanted to supplement with additional town funds, we would consider that as part of this upcoming budget cycle that we're about to start. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to check on that so that we're all aware that this $10,500 has to last us quite
This
some time.
$10,000 500, unfortunately, in reality, is not going to last us past the April. The
I understand.
amount of so we will have that money only. We have budgeted in. Luckily, we were aware of this, as Elizabeth said. There is money already for this in the registrar's budget, which is why it increased when it. And Rick and I and Elizabeth, we have spoken about that quite a bit about that. So this money will be, like we said, a one-time, and it will just be April, unfortunately, that it goes to.
Yeah. Unless there's additional funds put in the state budget, which is about to start being negotiated as well. So I just wanted to lay out, the financial scenario that we're in, since this is the Finance Administration Committee. And, I think we all kind of understand why it makes sense then to have one polling location, given limited funds and people resources, to be honest, as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm scrolling back. I don't see any other hands. And we don't have any other business items tonight. Mayor.
I just have one clarification. So this resolution will be on the agenda that we have in front of us for our 7:30 town council meeting. And
Yes.
and so I just want to make sure everybody aware. That's why we were, the timing is such that we'll be moving to the council meeting at 7:30 and then voting on it in that.
Thank
Correct?
you. That is useful for kind of why we're doing things a little bit differently.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chairman, to the mayor's
as
question. So it is on the agenda for the council meeting this evening. And we needed to let the Secretary of State know by the end of February, I believe February 27th, 28th, the number of polling locations that we would be utilizing here in West Hartford, which is why we had this special Finance and Administration meeting tonight before the council agenda, the council meeting. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And just before we adjourn, I'll take Chair's prerogative to note that just purely by accident, I grabbed this pen, the Every Vote Matters, the Secretary of State's office. It happened to be the one I grabbed. And I'm looking as we're talking and realizing it was a serendipity. So thank you. I'm sure you'll hear a bit of thanks at the next meeting, but thank you for all the work you're doing. It is challenging to, on the best circumstances, to run our elections, and certainly when there are new rules, it makes it even more complicated. So I do thank you for all the great work preparing for this, and for keeping this most important office working well. So thank you very much for your presentation, and again for everything. And you're not noticed when things go well. And but we definitely appreciate you and all your work. So with that, Mayor, you want to?
I think the town clerk might have a question. I'm not sure, so I just wanted to.
No, I just had, thank you, Madam Mayor, for you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Today it was reported that the Secretary of State has made a request of the Appropriations Committee of $7.5 million to cover early voting costs. But I think it's also well known that the governor is not in favor of additional funding to support municipalities with this. We are going to see a significant cost to do early voting in West Hartford. Our electorate is very engaged, and this is a presidential year. So I anticipate when we have the 14 days of early voting from mid-October to the election, we're going to have a lot of costs associated with early voting. And one also has to remember that in addition to early voting, we also have absentee voting, supervised voting, as well as election day voting. So there's a lot of ways to cast your ballot, and each one of these requires staffing and ballots, and different types of ballots that need to be printed for each way that somebody votes. So I'm pleased to report that the working relationship between the town clerk's office and the Register of Voters office could not be any stronger than it is, and kudos to them. We are definitely on the same page, moving in the same direction. But it will be quite challenging, as we have found out that even the booking of the town hall auditorium as a challenge, because each person needs to understand that no other activity can take place in the town hall auditorium other than voting. So there's a lot of nuances to this, but I think that we are in good hands with the great relationship we have with the Register of Voters office, my office, to make certain that every vote matters and every vote is counted. I think another point that's very, very important is this chain of custody issue. And I can't stress that enough. It's my legal responsibility at the end of each day of early voting to make certain that if 100 votes are cast, I have 100 votes at the end of the evening. And in light of the political environment we find nationwide, nothing can be more crucial than to make certain that every voted is accounted for. And I'm certain that West Hartford, being a leader statewide, will strive for perfection in this area. So thank you. And lastly, I'll say that this special meeting was necessary because state law requires us to make this determination either by a legislative body or by a public hearing process. A public hearing process would have been more costly and would have dragged out the process a little bit further. So being West Hartford, we chose the least costly, but still in a very effective way to make the determination of the number of polling locations that would be necessary for our municipality. And lastly, I'll say the other way that people can cast their ballots with absentee ballots is to put them into drop boxes, which also requires us to check on a regular basis to get those ballots and get them timestamped. So I want to reassure everybody that every vote, no matter how you vote, early, absentee, or on election day, will be counted, and that we will work very diligently to avoid any type of errors and making certain that people just vote one time. And I think that's very important to the process and to the integrity of our election system. So thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. With that, if there's no objection, we'll adjourn the meeting and see you all in 15 minutes.
Thank you. And thank you for your kind words of support. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Hmm.
I didn't either.
Okay, we are at 7:30. I just want to make sure that we are connected. You're right, Ed. Are we all set on WHCI?
Madam Mayor, yes, we are all set and you can begin.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. This is the Tuesday, February 13th, 7:30 Town Council meeting. I'm calling it to order. Again, this is a little, unusual for us to have a virtual meeting, and it does bring me back a bit, and I'm not so comfortable with that scenario, but just a little refresher. We called this virtual meeting because of the forecast. We had to make a call very early yesterday, and the forecast was pretty daunting. And anyway, so due to the inclement weather, we went ahead and are conducting tonight's meeting in a virtually. Because it's been a while, I want to go over a few ground rules and etiquette for the meeting so our public can follow. First, all counselors and staff who are participating in the meeting should make sure they are muted when not speaking. And I ask every counselor and staff member to please try and be on camera. I know if you have to come off for a little bit, fine, but please try so people can connect with you in the public. Second, if any counselor wishes to be heard at any time, please click raise your hand. And if you need to, you can say, excuse me, but I will try to monitor that closely, or you can text me and let me know your hand is raised. All persons are required to identify themselves by their names and titles each time they speak. I know this can be a little cumbersome, but it allows people that are following the meeting to do so. And I'm not sure that I did that in the beginning of my comments. I am Mayor Sherry Cantor. Thank you very much. And finally, we have no ordinances on the agenda tonight, so we will be voting by voice vote on most items. Under state laws governing virtual meetings, voice votes are only permitted on votes that are unanimous. So if you plan on voting against any of the items on the agenda, please let me know during the debate, and we will have to go to a roll call vote. So just to be clear, so people can follow. With that, we will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to step back off the camera so I'm not turned around and you see my backside. So the flag is right there. Thank you. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Mark, I'm shaking your hand. Okay. And we will start with roll call. Mr. Davidoff.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Town Clerk Leon Davidoff. Councilwoman Blanks,
Present.
Mayor Cantor,
Here.
Councilor Cortez,
Here.
Councilor Fay, absent. Councilor McGinnis,
Present.
Councilor Poland,
Here.
Councilor Walters,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Winograd,
Here.
Counselor Zdanowitz.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. We will begin with a proclamation. Unfortunately, this is our first meeting in February, and so the proclamation, even though it was prepared ahead, we're sharing with the public now. This is a proclamation in honor of Black History Month, whereas Black History Month, established in 1926 by Carter G. Woodson, is celebrated every February in recognition of achievements by Black Americans and all people of African descent in the United States. And whereas the West Hartford Town Council takes pride in recognizing February 2024 as Black History Month, celebrating the many notable contributions the people of African descent have made to our country, and we acknowledge that we have never fully lived up to the founding ideals of this country of all people being created equal. And whereas we recognize this year's Black History Month theme, African Americans and the Arts, as it explores the key influence African Americans have had in the fields of visual and performing arts, literature, fashion, folklore, language, film, music, architecture, culinary, and other forms of cultural expression. Whereas the town of West Hartford is proud of its vibrant community of Black artists, musicians, cultural leaders, and their diverse, innovative contributions to our local art scene, creating a neighborhood that has been excellent and dependable, and of our African American culture and artistry, spanning various genres, including jazz, visual arts, and contemporary expression. And whereas we honor the rich tapestry of Black artistic expression, from the thought-provoking and striking Martin Luther King Jr. mural in Blueback Square to the powerful and soulful voices of LaTanya Farrell and Javier Colon, which uphold our commitment to social justice and the cultural enrichment. Whereas we celebrate the diversity of Black people in West Hartford, our nation, and the beautiful makeup of the Black diaspora of African American, Afro-Latino, Afro-Caribbean, and more. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that on behalf of the Town Council and the residents of West Hartford, I, Mayor Sherry G. Cantor, do hereby join the nation in celebrating Black History Month, discovering, learning, and recognizing the invaluable contributions of African Americans and all they have made to our society, and celebrate these many achievements. And I hope this month that you have the opportunity to engage in enriching experiences and appreciation and learning of our Black history in our country. Thank you. All right. And now we will go to public forum. Any resident or taxpayer of the town who wishes to address the council regarding any item on the agenda which is not otherwise subject to a public hearing, which we didn't have today, can call, and I'll repeat this number twice, and maybe it's on the bottom, I don't know, 408-418-9388. That's 408-418-9388. And the access code is a little cumbersome, I know. This is the access code that you will have to dial in, is 2632-101-1900. That is 2632-101-1900. Callers should not mute their phones. The meeting moderator will do that for you. Callers will be placed in a queue and unmuted one at a time. Only persons who intend to participate in the public forum should call in. All other persons may watch and listen either online or on Channel 5 or on television. Moderator, it may be a little early, but are there any callers? Okay. I don't hear any. We'll wait 30 seconds just in case. Sorry, a little leftover cough from my flu. Okay, it doesn't appear that there are any callers for public comment. So we will go to the consent agenda. Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor Winograd. Without objection, I ask unanimous consent for items 5A, 5B, 5C, 5D, 7I, 7J, 10A, 10B, and 10C to be placed on the consent calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, the items are placed on consent. Mr. Winograd?
I move adoption of the consent calendar.
Counselor Poland, second.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Winograd, Counselor Poland. Motions have made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and we know that you can't be opposed or we go to roll call. So thank you very much. And we will move right down to 7A. Mr. Winograd, Deputy Mayor Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to adopt a resolution appropriating funds to purchase additional police vehicles.
Thank you,
Counselor
Mr.
Poland, second.
Thank you. Thank you for the motion and the second. Again, Mayor Cantor is returning to Mr. Our town manager, Mr. Ledwith. Mr. Ledwith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Rick Ledwith, Town Manager. I'll start with a little bit of history regarding this request, which we discussed at our last Finance and Administration meeting on February 6th. But some of the council may remember that back in 2021, the council had authorized the purchase of 5 new police vehicles. This order was subsequently canceled by the vendor due to supply chain issues back in the fall of 2022. A little over 2 weeks ago, the vendor called us and had identified 3 hybrid police interceptor utility cruisers that were built to our specification, and they asked us whether we would want to purchase them at a cost of $180,333.11 for all 3 vehicles, which of course we quickly said yes. And we would utilize capital non-recurring funds to make this purchase. And that summarizes this particular resolution. I will turn it back to you, Madam Mayor, and be happy to answer any questions that you had or the council had.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. And this was discussed in finance, so I will turn to Mr. Winograd, and if he wants to, our Deputy Mayor Winograd, to summarize also what happened in committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor Winograd. This was discussed. I think the consensus of the Finance Committee was that this seemed a good deal, and we appreciated the efforts to make this happen, and I'd recommend support.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Are there any comments before the vote?
Mayor Cantor.
Miss Blanks, Councilor Blanks.
Thank you. Carol Blanks, Town Councilor. I would just echo Deputy Mayor and say that I strongly support this purchase. We know that our police department need these vehicles in order to perform their job each and every single day. And with the growing threats that surround our town, this is essential in order for them to do their job. So I would hope that we are all in support of this purchase. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. And I should have turned to you as Chair of Public Safety because this is important for your committee as well. I appreciate that very much. Any further comments or questions? So this is an important item, and we're glad to be in this place to be able to support this. So all those I haven't heard any no's, so we're going to voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and we will go to thank you, and we'll go to B. Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Winograd. With a resolution, motion to adopt a resolution appropriating funds for a civil engineer 2 within the Department of Community Development.
Counselor Poland, second.
Thank you for the motion and the second. Mr. Ledwith, we will go back to you, Town Manager Ledwith.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Rick Ledwith, Town Manager. This resolution was also discussed at our last Finance and Administration meeting on February 6th. And as the council will remember, we were awarded a $700,000 Safe Streets for All grant to fund our speed enforcement pilot program. This program will also fund an engineering position, but it will likely be several months before we receive the funding for this grant and subsequent position. And we would propose utilizing $31,000 of ARPA funds to fund the position immediately, which would allow our engineering department to get a jump start on our Vision Zero action plan, which fits in perfectly with this, or I should say the speed enforcement program fits in perfectly with our Vision Zero action plan. So this position would begin working on the design of the 70 plus projects that we've identified to be completed within the first year of Vision Zero. And once we receive the Safe Streets for All grant later this fiscal year, we would then fund this position in fiscal year 25 through this grant. So essentially, this will give us a 3-month head start in this fiscal year to start the design on all 70 of those projects. And then next year, as we move into the design of the speed enforcement program, we'd be utilizing the position for both Vision Zero and the speed enforcement pilot program. So I will pause there, and through you, Madam Mayor, turn it back to you and the council for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith, and I will again kick it to our Deputy Mayor for Mr. Winograd for his review. Again, this was reviewed in his committee, and Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Winograd. I'll speak to the economics and defer to the to Councilor McGinnis on the merits for her committee. On the economics of this, we are spending some ARPA money on this. Which I'll note, we're certainly aware, and we had the discussion about the dangers of building a hole in the budget by using ARPA money for salary. This is temporary, and in our discussions, this seems an appropriate use of the funding for this year. And we understand that as the position becomes permanent, and it is permanent, it'll have a fiscal cost to it later on. But this seems a reasonable thing to do at this time. And again, we had that discussion in finance, and I urge support from my colleagues for this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Ms. McGinnis, I didn't know if you wanted to make any comments.
The only thing I have to say is, we want to get started as soon as we can on the Vision Zero, which will be discussed at the upcoming CPED meeting and in a future town council meeting. So I think I can't speak for the other committee members on CPED, but I think that this is a good use of funds to help us get a jump start on those projects. Thank you. Oh, Tiffany McGinnis, town councilor. Sorry for.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. McGinnis. All right. Any other comments on this? All right, I couldn't agree more that each day that goes by, then we can start working on these 70 plus projects is really important. This is the health and safety of our community and a priority, and so I strongly support this. All right, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Oh, good. You're paying attention. Okay, so this passes again unanimously, and we will move to C, Mr. Winograd.
Deputy Mayor Winograd with a motion to adopt a resolution amending the salary range of non-union director positions.
Councillor Poland, second.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Ledwith, back to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Rick Ledwith, Town Manager. This resolution was also discussed at our very busy Finance and Administration meeting on February 6th, and would authorize the Town Manager to amend the current director salary range for our directors from the current maximum of $165,000, and we would increase that by 9% to $180,000. We would generally amend this range every 5 years or so when necessary to provide members of our team with a cost of living adjustment. And the last time we did amend this salary range was back in 2019. Right now, most of our directors are not anywhere near the current maximum. I do have 2 members of my leadership team, critical members of our leadership team, who have been at the maximum for a couple of years now. And I would appreciate the opportunity to provide these hardworking individuals with a cost of living adjustment sometime in the future. So This does not mean, passing this resolution does not mean that I will go out and award a 9% raise to our directors. But it just amends that range, will allow me to provide a modest cost of living adjustment to at least these two directors for now, and then others in the future, as we may rise up that salary range. But it does, again, it would be something I would come back to the council in a number of years if we ever get back to that maximum to amend it even further. So appreciate the council's support for this resolution, and through you, Madam Mayor, we'll turn it back to you and the council for any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Over to you, Mr. Winograd, or Deputy Mayor Winograd from Finance.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Winograd. As I say, a busy meeting. Nothing much to add to Mr. Ledwith's comments, except to note again, these are something that we do regularly every few years, and to give him the flexibility he needs. But again, it does not reflect a raise of the size of that. It looks like the 9%. It'll be a few more years before it comes back to us again with a request to increase it. But certainly we want to have the best staff, and we have to compensate people for that. So, and we certainly trust the manager for his appropriate spending on wages, and to get what town taxpayers deserve in this town, which is really the best people to run our departments. I do urge support from the rest of the council.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Ms. Poulin.
Thank you, Councillor Poland, for the record. And I would just like to add that, of course, any increases that would be provided would be done within budgetary limitations. So this isn't going to increase the town budget for the current fiscal year in any way. It just provides flexibility to our town manager to compensate his staff in a way that he feels is appropriate.
Thank you, Ms. Poland. Any other comments? Okay, I don't see any. We will go to voice vote. All of those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We will go to letter D. Mr. Okay, Mr. Winograd. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor Winograd, with a motion to adopt a resolution revising the schedule of fees for various recreational facilities.
Councillor Poland seconds the motion.
Okay, that's why I was kind of, I want to go to you, Ms. Poland, because this is really something that was discussed in both committees, but your committee being leisure, having the leisure responsibilities. So would you want to mention? Oh,
Yes.
Well, we'll go to Mr. Ledwith. Why don't we go to Mr. Ledwith first? I apologize. Mr. Ledwith, why don't you do a summary? Apologize for that.
No, thank you, Madam Mayor, and Rick Ledwith, Town Manager. And as you mentioned, this was discussed at our last Human and Community Services meeting back in January. And this resolution will allow us to raise fees for certain uses at both our Rockledge and Buena Vista golf courses, as well as modify some of our rental fees at the Elmwood Community Center. So for Rockledge and Buena Vista, we are not proposing to increase green fees this year. We did that in years past, so we'll be leaving greens fees alone this year, which I think will make our golfers happy. However, we would increase the season pass from $1,450 to $1,550, and the seniors full season pass we would increase from $1,080 to $1,125, and that's a $45 increase. We'd also increase the partial season pass for seniors from $800 to $840. And these modest increases would keep us in line with our regional competitors based on where their rates are even back in 2023. So that doesn't even consider what they might increase them to in 2024, and would provide would have a financial impact of about $9,500 in additional revenue for our leisure services fund. At Buena Vista, we would increase the season pass from between $20 and $30, depending on the category. However, we only sold 37 season passes at Buena Vista last year, so this would have a fairly minimal financial impact for the town. And then at Elmwood Community Center, we are proposing modest increases for use of the auditorium. We also have a schedule of rentals for our various classrooms over at Elmwood Community Center, as well as the gym. And we're proposing a increase anywhere between 5 and 15%, depending on the category. And we haven't raised these fees in quite a while. So we raised the auditorium back in 2019. We increased the classroom rate back in 2018, and we increased the rate for the gym back in 2016. So it has been a number of years since we've done this. Again, it's a modest increase across the various categories, but will still keep us very much in line with any competition from neighboring towns. So through you, Madam Mayor, I turn it back to you and the council for any questions or comments that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Yes, that's very helpful, all of that information. And now, Ms. Pullen, if you want to review what any further input discussed in Human and Community Services.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I will just add that whereas we don't really like to raise fees for the use of our facilities in town, this is a necessary adjustment because of a number of driving factors, one of which is the increase in minimum wage on January 1st. Many of you know minimum wage went up in Connecticut, so we need to ensure that we're paying our staff a reasonable and legally compliant wage to operate these facilities. We also have additional operating costs. So these are, again, very minimal adjustments intended to ensure that we can operate the facilities well and bring in just a little bit of extra money in order to make sure that we are operating in the black and responsibly for Buena Vista, Rockledge, and the Elmwood Community Center. So I would urge your support.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. Any other comments or questions about this item? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. And we will go to letter E, Mr. Winograd.
I'll thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, on this item, I believe Mr. Ledwith has a comment.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Rick Ledwith, Town Manager. We would like to withdraw this item this evening. CSEA, SEIU Local 2001 had indicated to us previously that the building maintenance contract unit had ratified this agreement. And you may recall we brought this to Finance and Administration as well on February 6th, along with 2 other bargaining units that we'll talk about in a moment. But as it turns out, they had signed the tentative agreement, but had not voted yet. So we would ask the council not to address this until the union actually ratifies the contract. Then we would bring it back to a future council meeting for your ratification.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Now back to you, Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Deputy Mayor Winograd, without objection, ask for unanimous consent that this item E be withdrawn.
Is there any objection? Okay. Hearing no objection, the resolution is withdrawn. Letter F, Mr. Winograd.
Thank you. I make a motion to adopt a resolution approving a collective bargaining agreement with CSEA SEIU Local 2001 Clerical Unit for the period July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Mr. Ledwith?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Rick Ledwith, Town Manager.
Second.
Councilor Pullen, second the motion.
Rick Ledwith, Town Manager. We discussed this resolution at our last Finance and Administration as well. And it's a collective bargaining agreement between the town and CSEA, who represents our clerical unit, who I'll discuss first. And the clerical unit membership provides administrative support throughout our entire organization. So they they touch every one of our divisions and essentially every service we provide to our community at some point starts within the ranks of our clerical units. So as I can attest to, and any of our directors or managers, supervisors you may talk to throughout the organization, they are absolutely critical function to what we do here in town. So so this contract that you'll be voting on does go back to July 1st of 2021. So it goes back a few years now. And if I'll provide a little bit of history here. So back in 21, when that contract expired, we were coming out of COVID. We're facing some financial, more than some financial uncertainty at that time. So our negotiations started off very slowly at that point because of what was happening with the economy as we moved further away from 21 and talks were continuing. As we all know, that economy changed and we were all faced with and continue to face a very high inflationary time period, though it has been we've been facing a better inflationary time period over the last several months than we were over the last couple of years. So, and during that negotiation process, like most of our negotiations, we'll start with a long list of items that the union would want addressed through this process, and through that back and forth. We would a lot of those proposals will tend to fall off, and at the end of the day we'll end up with a contract that focuses in on wages and benefits. And with that spike in inflation that we were seeing, we were also seeing agreements coming in from around the state that were increasing over that time period. And we're now at a point where we're seeing most settlements starting with the number 3 in terms of a wage increase. So during this negotiation process, it was important for us to try to keep some of those earlier years as low as possible to minimize any compounding that occurs when you look at a 3, 4, 5 year settlement. And in order to do that, we had to come up with some creative solutions in some other areas in order to accomplish that. So the package you would be voting on does go back, as I said, to 2021, does call for a 2.5% wage increase in the first year, 2.5% wage increase in the second year, and then 3% in each of the next 2 years. Within the final year, we'd also provide a $2,000 lump sum paid to those employees who are at top step in lieu of a step increase. Some of the areas that we did get creative, we increased the compensation for educational attainments. So any member who had an associate's degree or attained an associate's degree, we would provide a annual stipend of $720. We increased that up to $960. And then if they had their bachelor's degree, we had increased that up to $1,260 annually. And that's $105 per month, up from $85 per month. In terms of insurance, effective upon ratification, we increased the cost of contribution towards insurance up to 19.5%, with a cap of 4.75% of wages. And then on July 1st of 24, we increased that to 20% of their premium, and the cap would move to 5.25% of their compensation. And then for new hires hired on or after July 1st of 2023, that 20% would remain 20% of the cost of the insurance, but the cap even further increases up to 6.25% of their wages. So this would provide almost 17% increase in employee contributions for current employees, and then a 21.36% increase in employee contributions for new hires choosing individual coverage, and a 47% increase in employee contributions for new hires choosing employee plus one or family coverage. And then we also have an insurance opt-out clause that we have grandfathered in. We used to provide, or still do provide, 10 vacation days for employees who waive our health insurance as an incentive to not take our insurance. We'll leave that in place for current employees, but then all new employees would get a $2,500 cash payment in lieu of the vacation time for waiving our insurance. So that summarizes the highlights of this agreement. As I mentioned, we did discuss this in Finance and Administration, where we had our outside counsel who led our negotiations with this collective bargaining unit at the F&A meeting. But I will pause there and turn it back through you, Madam Mayor, to entertain any questions that the council may have or comments that you may have on this agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. And we will go back to Mr. Winograd. This was discussed in finance for his input.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor Winograd. Yeah, as noted, we did discuss it and had an opportunity to review the terms. And just want to say I appreciate the hard work of both sides of the bargaining. It is never easy, but we like to see settlements, and I appreciate that you and your team were able to bring in a settlement, and I think the union's team as well. And I'll just note also just deepest appreciation for the work of our staff, the clerical unit. As you said, I mean, they're the often don't get the recognition they deserve, and we all know how much they're relied upon. So thank you to them for again all their work in service through some hard times and for the future. So I recommend adoption by the rest of the council.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Are there any other comments or questions? Having this virtual meeting did bring us, sort of back to that time, and this is a reflection and a settlement that does reflect many of the ups and downs and difficulties that have many workforce around our country have experienced. So we appreciate the tremendous job that they do, and thank our administration and the union for their work in getting to this place. So, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We will go to letter G. Mr. Winograd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Deputy Mayor Winograd with a motion to adopt a resolution approving a collective bargaining agreement with CSCA SEIU Local 2001 Supervisory Unit for the period July 1, 2021 through June 30th, 2027.
Councillor Poland seconds motion.
Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded. We will go over to you again, Mr. Ledwith, for a summary.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Rick Ledwith, Town Manager, and the supervisory unit is a group of, they're essentially our leadership team within our Department of Public Works. So these individuals all report directly into our Director, John Phillips, and they provide the day-to-day leadership out on the streets, out on the roads every single day. Today's a perfect example of the impact that Public Works has on our community. In our last conversation regarding the clerical unit, everything that I talked about in terms of the history with our supervisors holds true. With our clerical unit holds true with our supervisors as well. So I won't repeat those comments regarding the history, and I will dive right into the details of this agreement. This is a little bit longer of an agreement. We're looking to stagger. We have 9 bargaining units within the town, and CSEA SEIU 2001 has 6 bargaining units within that cluster. So we're looking to create a little bit of separation in the negotiation process among those various units so that we're not doing all 6 at once like we had to do this time. So this agreement is a 6-year agreement that goes retroactive to July 1st of 2021. So it does go retroactive a couple of years, calls for 2.5% GWI in the first year, 2.5% in the second year, 3% in year 3, another 3% in year 4, with that $2,000 lump sum payment to employees that were at the top step. And then we'd have 3% in each of the out years, 2025 and 2026. We did some creative things with some of the compensation that these folks receive. So in F&A, we did discuss the fact, and I'll repeat it this evening as well. Our supervisor units, in comparison to supervisor units around the state, so most cities and towns, supervisors are paid on an hourly basis. Like most members of our public works department and our police department and fire department, they're paid hourly. Our folks, our supervisors are paid a salary, so they are not paid an hourly as an hourly basis. So in the event like today, where they're working all day and into the night, or coming in early, or any of our special events that happen throughout the year, they will come in for those: Memorial Day parade, Pride event, celebrate, all the various things that happen throughout the year. Essentially, 40 or 50 of those events that happen throughout the year, they'll be here providing leadership for our staff and not receiving overtime for that. So we have looked to provide a stipend for those special events of $500 per event, and then that would increase to $515 in 2024, $530 in 2025, and $546 in 2026. In addition, they're on hand for all of our storm removal and hauling operations, which, today was a big day. We received over a foot of snow, but we will be back this evening hauling snow out of the center and other locations throughout town, and they'll be supervising that operation. And we will provide them with a $500 stipend for performing those leadership duties. And again, it's in lieu of any kind of overtime that is typically earned at other municipalities throughout the state. In addition, with the insurance, similar increase in the insurances as we saw with the clerical. So we will increase the premium contribution to 20% and move the cap to 5.25% of their compensation. And then for new hires after July 1st of 2023, that 20% would remain of the premium, but we'd increase the cap to 6.25%. And again, we also have that 10-day vacation in lieu of our insurance, and we would move that to a $2,500 lump sum payment in lieu of the 10 days of vacation. And that summarizes the highlights of this agreement as well. No, sorry, with the 457 plan, we would increase the match on that 457 plan to 1.7% of an employee's base pay. So, but that highlights that agreement. And again, I'd say the work that they provide, and like I said, today is a reminder of the incredible work that they do and members of our public works department do to keep our town safe and clean and as quickly cleaned as possible. And today by 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, our streets were in excellent shape because of the work of the members of our public works department. So would ask the council for your support on this agreement, and we'll pause there, and through you, Madam Mayor, turn it over to you and the council for any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Appreciate it. And I think you can see by everything that Mr. Ledwith just described, there's a lot of work that goes into reaching an agreement like this. Mr. Winograd, over to you for comments out of your committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor Winograd. Won't repeat everything that Rick said, of course, concur with his view. And I'll again thank the bargaining teams as well as the members for all their hard work. And again, they didn't have to organize this snowfall to prove that their value. And so I don't think it would have changed the outcome, but it certainly is convenient. And we all appreciate the great work that they and their staff do. So I urge support from my colleagues.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Any other comments or? Mr. Zdanowicz, you are, I see that you're talking, but you're not off mute. I don't know if you want to speak. Yes, no? Oh, okay, very good. I just would like to echo the fact that, again, many times we don't see, and we had talked about this before, people hear about it when things don't go right. When they go right, we don't hear about it. And that's what our Public Works department, our supervisors do every day. And I will say I get national communications and local communications about the difficulties in hiring municipal employees now. It's especially younger workers that have options to do jobs that might not be so physical or be present for, that there's options in remote work or other things. So this is really important for us to make sure that we are staffed appropriately and we invest in people that will be taking care of our communities and keeping us safe. So I'm grateful for, again, the work of our union leadership and the whole union, as well as our town administration in getting to this agreement. So, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And we will go to H. And we have had some people that have stayed on the whole way through for this resolution. So thank you for that. And I will go to Mr. Winograd. Thank you.
Thank you. Motion to adopt a resolution concerning early voting polling locations or location.
Councilor Poland, second the motion. Madam Mayor, you're on mute.
Thank you. Mr. Ledwith, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Rick Ledwith, Town Manager. Earlier this evening, we had a chance to discuss the early voting polling locations at our special Finance and Administration Committee meeting. Our registrars have recommended that the town utilize one polling location for early voting purposes due to costs, staff requirements that it would take to staff any additional polling locations that we would have beyond that one. And also the use of online centralized voter registration system, which we were notified earlier last week, or I should say by Secretary of State, that we could only be guaranteed at this ZVRS could only be guaranteed at one location as well. So, and then we also have issues related to ballot custody that will be complicated enough at one location. Adding it out to a number of locations would make it even more problematic. So, excuse me. And as part of Public Act 23-5, the state of Connecticut is providing a one-time grant in the amount of $10,500 to every municipality throughout the state to offset the cost of operating an early voting location. And as we discussed in our Finance and Administration Committee meeting, the $10,500 would not cover the 4-day early voting requirement for the primary presidential election, let alone moving it into the November general election. So we'll put it to use, but it won't nearly cover our costs to run the 4 days of polling and in April for the presidential primary. So, but this resolution will also allow us to formally appropriate that $10,500 grant. So through you, Madam Mayor, happy to turn it back to you and the council for any questions or comments that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Ms. Winograd, this was again, prior to this council meeting, we had this meeting, this finance meeting. And I just want to add that there was a reason we had to do it so quickly. The town manager mentioned by the end of the month, they needed to know, but I received an email actually that said by tomorrow, they needed to know if there was an additional location. So it was really important for us to take care of business tonight. So thank you, Mr. Winograd, over to you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Deputy Mayor Winograd. We did just have a discussion. I want to thank our registrars, Beth Kyle, Elizabeth Rousseau, as well as our town clerk, Leanne Davidoff, for their very well-informed research on this and very helpful to understanding that what is a new process. So I think great credit to the entire team for the work they're doing to, work through a new rule and try to make it work as best as possible for our town. So I strongly support the recommendation for one polling place, and also give them full confidence in their ability to incorporate these changes and run a smooth election. One thing every one of us on council has in common is we've run for office. So we all certainly appreciate and know how important the office is, and we rely on it. I certainly urge support and again thank them, their whole elections team for their hard work.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Are there any other comments or questions about this item? Councilor Pullen?
Yes, thanks so much. And I mentioned this during the Finance and Administration Committee meeting, but I want to make sure that I mention it again for the record during this meeting as well. So this is a $10,500 grant that is not at all going to cover the costs of early voting for our town. We do have money in the current year budget to support the early voting that will basically cover the cost for this one location. And if we were to receive additional funding from the state, we could consider adding another location for future elections. But at this time, this is a responsible use of the funding that we have both from the state grant and built into the town budget for our current fiscal year. So I would also urge support of this one location and thank the two registrars and the town clerk for both their research and their explanation during our last meeting. I, for one, did not know how complicated this was going to be. I guess I just thought it was like the same ballot that you would get if you were going to go to your own polling location on election day. It is significantly more complicated than that. There are envelopes and labels and a whole host of other items that need to be purchased and printed and kept securely and put in a lockbox every single day. And I'm grateful for them for educating us. And I know there's also a plan to educate the public as far as how early voting is going to work and how people can access this new way of voting in April and moving forward.
Thank you, Ms. Pullen. Ms. Blanks?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Carol Blanks, Town Councilor. I just really wanted to comment on the hard work that both Elizabeth and Beth and our town clerk, Leon, has put into this, gearing up, anticipating what the Secretary of State office was going to do in terms of releasing this grant money. And we know that it's not nearly what we really need, but we're grateful for every cent that we receive. So I just really wanted to thank you all, because I know in speaking to you that you were anticipating this, you were putting all the steps in place to gear up and make sure that you have a plan, a viable plan to ensure that our elections remain safe and every vote counts, and that gives confidence to our voters. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Ms. Blanks. Any other comments or questions? Well, I just want to, I also want to thank our registrars, Beth Kyle, Elizabeth Rousseau, for their commitment and work and the dedication. And they really did get up to speed very quickly on this issue. And as Councilor Pullen mentioned, this is much more complicated. There's a lot of nuance. real importance of the credibility and the safety of those ballots is so critical. So, and we have an incredible, real committee team, and Counselor oh my gosh, throwback, a town clerk, David Off, about, so much, is falls on the town clerk as well. And the commitment that he has made to this process is really important. We're all going to learn a little bit, no question, this year. And of course, early voting this year being a presidential election, it's going to be learned by fire. So we will all be there for you, but I know that we're being led in eyes wide open and with a commitment to excellence. So we appreciate you. And thank you for that. And if there's nothing further, right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries unanimously. Very good. Guys, thank you so much for staying on. We got the opportunity to thank you, but you can go have dinner. So happy Valentine's Day. All right, reports from the town manager, Mr. Ledford.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Rick Ledwood, Town Manager. My report can be found online, and I will hit a couple of the highlights for all of you this evening. I'll begin by quickly just giving a shout out to our Public Works Department. They reported to work this morning at 4 a.m. and as we saw the results of their hard work all day, despite the fact that we received, from what we're hearing, the highest snow totals in the state at about 15 inches. Our crews had the streets mostly clean by 2-3 o'clock this afternoon. I did talk to John Phillips, our director, at around 5, and at that point he was sending everybody home with the exception of 2 folks. And I just wanted to mention this as well, and this is a reflection on the commitment of our crews and the pride that they take in their work. As you know, after a storm, we, especially in the center, you'll see the center lane filled with snow. We move everything to the middle, and then we'll generally take a night off, come back the following night and get rid of all the snow. John's crews volunteered to come back at midnight tonight to clean everything up, even a day in advance of what we normally would do. So I know our tenants, the commercial tenants and businesses in the center will be very pleased to come to work tomorrow morning and see that the center's been cleared by our crews. And really, I know I speak on behalf of all of us here that really appreciate the work and commitment and dedication that they take and the pride that they take in the work that they do to keep our community clean. So, and then I'll quickly hit some highlights of our town manager's report. So upcoming council business and meetings, we have a community planning and economic development committee meeting on February 26th at 8 a.m. We have a human and community services committee that same day at 6 p.m. that evening. And both of those meetings will be virtual. Our next council meeting will be February 27th at 7:30 p.m. back in the council chambers, weather permitting. Wanted to give a quick update on our grand list, which was finalized. The 2023 grand list was finalized. The assessment department finalized the 2023 grand list of taxable and exempt property effective October 1st of 2023 per Connecticut general statutes. The 2023 general list reflects all changes in ownership and valuation for each property class. The total net assessed value of all taxable property before the Board of Assessment Appeal Actions is $7,228,588,979, representing an increase in the net taxable list of $5.6 million or 0.08% above last year's list. The real property list increased by $19 million or 0.3%, which is a reflection of home improvement projects and some new developments. However, as we've discussed, at Finance and Administration, only a fraction of their full values contributed to the 2023 grand list because of their incomplete state. So we have a large number of projects that are in the pipeline and we will start to see come on to our grand list in the next couple of years. The motor vehicle list decreased by $26.8 million due to used car prices higher than any time before the pandemic. And we discussed that the used car prices were rose pretty dramatically through COVID. And now we're seeing a softening of that market, and this decrease reflects that softening of the market. Personal property lists increased by $13.4 million or 6% to $237,267,170. And we continue to experience healthy investment in furniture, fixtures, and equipment, which surpassed annual depreciation on existing assets. The town of West Hartford hosted a public information meeting on February 7th, 2024 to discuss the reconstruction of LaSalle Road from Farmington Avenue to Ellsworth Road and Farmington Avenue from Walden Street to North and South Main Street. We appreciate the continued engagement of our community throughout this important project and invite you to participate in a poll to express your preference for the proposed design concepts of LaSalle Road and Farmington Avenue that were shown during the presentation. Members of the public can go online to take part in the poll, and the poll will remain open until February 21st. Poll results will be provided on our project webpage during the week of February 26th. Wanted to talk quickly about some tax relief programs for the elderly and disabled homeowners. The town offers 2 tax relief programs to help eligible elderly age 65 and over and disabled residents with their tax bills. They are the local elderly property tax freeze program and the state of Connecticut elderly or 100% disabled homeowners program. The filing period for both programs is February 1st through May 15th of each year. And eligibility details can be found on this report online as well as our website. And that concludes the town manager's report this evening, Madam Mayor. As I said, this is also online, and folks can read some more of the details that are found in this week's report. And happy to answer any questions that you may have, Madam Mayor, as well as any of the council members.
Thank you, Mr. Ledwith. Are there any questions for the town manager? I don't see any. Okay. One more time. All right. Thank you very much. And I will go over to Corporation Counsel, Mr. Dodge. I know he has something to share with us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've been enjoying the virtual meeting. This is quite the throwback. I've been having flashbacks to my first year as Corporation Counsel. Anyway, Madam Mayor, I do need to report together with the town manager to the town council concerning the selection of a site for the lease, sale, or purchase of real estate by the town. However, we will require an executive session to do that. The town council will not need to vote on anything coming out of the executive session. So I would suggest that when we go into executive session, we do so just before adjournment. We can make a compound motion at that point to adjourn immediately thereafter. Madam Mayor, every member of the town council should have received an email from Ms. Reinheimer with a separate WebEx to log into for the executive session so that we can make sure that we're meeting in private. Please, everybody, make sure that you fully exit and leave this WebEx before you go into the new WebEx. With that, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Dodge. So just a question, do we have to adjourn then this meeting on this site, or can we just adjourn on that? Yeah. Can we adjourn and then go?
Yes, Madam Mayor. The way we have it scripted out, when the deputy mayor makes the motion, he will move to go into executive session and to adjourn the meeting immediately thereafter. So the public portion of the meeting will be adjourned at that point.
Thank you. It was buried under my announcements. I apologize. I know. And
this is a practice that we adopted during COVID so that we could avoid the cumbersome practice of having to go back into the former WebEx.
Appreciate. Okay. Any questions for Corporation Counsel? We will be chatting with you shortly. Okay. And quickly, announcements. Many of these you received, but this is the first this is the West African West Hartford African American Social and Cultural Organization is hosting this Saturday, February 17th, from 1 to 4 in the conference center in our town hall, the first Black Business Expo. And this is will be a vibrant celebration dedicated to honoring and promoting the achievements of Black-owned businesses physically located within West Hartford community. There are about 20 businesses that were listed on this particular press release. It should be a really a special afternoon. And so this is about community empowerment, economic impact, and providing a platform for West Hartford Black-owned businesses to showcase their products and services. The expo aims to amplify diverse talents and foster collaboration among entrepreneurs in West Hartford. And I hope many of you can join me there. And I really want to congratulate Mo Fredette. Many of you know Mo and all that he does, has done in leadership roles for our Veterans Commission and our Legion. He's just a remarkable man, and we're not the only ones who appreciate him immensely. Connecticut Veterans Hall of Fame actually he was inducted for his years of service to the community and to veterans. So I really want to. This doesn't happen very often, so I really want to do a special shout out to him. He was the past commander of American Legion Post 96 Hayes Village, creator of the high school student military inductee ceremony, which is so meaningful to the families, leader of the annual Veterans Day and Memorial Day ceremonies, co-chaired American Legion's 100th anniversary events, including a traveling historical exhibit, a member of the Veteran Memorial Committee, that really has designed such an important Veterans Memorial for our community and for our state. And I just am so proud of him and grateful to all that he's given our community. So thank you, Mo. And more congratulations to follow with him. Sedgwick Middle School is the winner of the USA National Final of Kids Lit Quiz. This is absolutely amazing. They will be headed to finals in Australia in July. I'm so jealous of that. The competition challenges the literary knowledge of children ages 10 to 13 with questions on a wide range of books, authors, and genres. And this team of students, Roxy Gagan, Adelaide Wren, Anna Pax Small, and Madeline Wickersham, was coached by Sarah Tamburello and Shannon McNeese. The winners will need to raise funds for their flight to Australia, but once their expenses are paid. So it's truly amazing. Call for student and art submissions for Taking Care of Body and Mind exhibit at the West Hartford Community Concern. And for more information, visit their website, Community of Concern. Elder Justice Forum will be held with Attorney General William Tong on February 20th, 10 to 11 a.m. This is sponsored by our Senior Center Advisory Commission and will be held at the Bishop's Corner Senior Center. 12th Annual Vines of March is Rotary's largest fundraiser. Again, this will take place March 2nd at Town Hall. And they do so much for our community. If you can be there, please consider purchasing a $75 ticket with sample foods from all over West Hartford and enjoy a really fun night. 25th Annual Children's Charity Ball. This is the Bridge fundraiser. Will be held at Farmington Gardens on Saturday, March 9th. And it has a live auction and a wonderful dancing and a great time. Art League has 2 exhibits in February celebrating diversity and cut and paste. This will be held on opening will be February 18th, 2 to 4 p.m. And it is free. Celebrating Diversity is a juried exhibit featuring 26 artists whose work explores themes of age, gender, race, ethnicity, religion, disability, sexual orientation, sexual identity, education, national origin, and other distinguishing characters or traits. Cut and Paste is a juried collage exhibit, features 49 artists whose work juxtaposes materials to create a new work of art. I also do know that our food pantry is in need of sort of the standard items, but anything with protein, rice, and beans will be sincerely appreciated. Are there any other announcement anyone would like to share before we go into executive session? Okay, Mr. Winograd, want to make the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Without objection, I ask unanimous consent to go into executive session for the purpose of hearing the Corporation Council's report on the selection of a site or the lease, sale, or purchase of real estate by the town, and that the council adjourn immediately thereafter.
Is there any objection? Okay, hearing no objection, we will go into executive session and the meeting will adjourn immediately after. The town manager, corporation counsel, and deputy corporation counsel are all necessary to this discussion, so please join us. So we will sign off and get back on. Thank you.